This message comes from Solidigm. Yesterday's approach to storage can't meet the demands of today's AI ambitions. Bigger, faster, and more energy efficient, Solidigm solid-state storage solutions are optimized for AI. Learn more at storageforai.com.
What's good, y'all? It's Gene, but you know that already. Before we start the show today, I want to make sure you know it's a special week at NPR because it was just Giving Tuesday the other day. NPR celebrates this global day of generosity every year, but this year has been a weird one, an odd one for us. You may have heard. Federal funding for public media was eliminated on October 1st. That means the NPR is now operating without federal support for the first time in our history. That's more than half a century. This is a big change and a big challenge if we keep it in the being. But you know, we are not afraid of tackling tough stuff around here. It's kind of what we do. And we can get through this together with your help. We are so grateful to the listeners who've already stepped up to donate. Listeners like Samantha from California, who says, I'm going to quote her here, NPR's Code Switch spoke to me in a time when I was discovering my own identity as a biracial woman in America. I will be forever grateful to the NPR network for your thoughtful, poignant, and well-researched programming. Don't lose heart. Samantha, thank you for that. That means a lot to us. I mean, you know, it's why we do what we do. And listener, you can help us by doing it too. Please make your Giving Tuesday gift right now by signing up for NPR Plus. It's a simple recurring donation that gets you perks to NPR's podcast. You can join us at plus.npr.org. And thank you for your support, for rocking with us. Yeah, let's get to the show. What's good? You're listening to Code Switch, the show about race and identity from NPR. I'm Gene Demby, and I'm joined today by one of our colleagues here at NPR, Ximena Bustillo. Ximena covers immigration and the Department of Homeland Security for NPR. So, you know, like real quiet beats where there's no news ever, you know what I mean? Ximena, welcome to Code Switch.
Hey, Gene.
Okay, so what are you bringing to us today?
I want to start by telling you about a very specific day in 2025, just a few months ago. It turned out to be a very bad day for Anam Petit.
It was Friday, September 5th. I received an email around 3:30 p.m.
That's Anam's voice you're hearing.
You know, I kind of froze for a moment, read it multiple times, took it in. I was on the bench already, so I was in the courtroom. The interpreter was seated to my right.
I should say Anam is a judge in Annandale, Virginia.
The attorneys were appearing by WebEx, as I had permitted them to do for this decision. And I had to excuse myself. I texted my husband, and before even waiting for a response, I had to go back in there and give my decision.
Anam is an immigration judge, so the decisions she's talking about are whether or not someone might get to stay in the U.S. or get deported.
I was just so overcome with emotion, but just trying to center myself. Like, my voice was shaking, my hands were shaking, my mind was racing, and I gave the decision, and I dismissed everyone without mentioning anything. And then I had to go to my office and pack it up. Several judges were helping me and other staff members. A lot of condolences and handshakes and hugs. And I left with all my stuff.
In that email, Anam had learned that she had been fired.
Just unceremoniously via email?
Yeah, but Anam was not actually as surprised as you are.
I was operating under the assumption that I would be fired and that there was nothing that I could do that was going to change that. And so that was my operating assumption. Of course, a part of me was still hopeful and optimistic, but it was a really small part of me.
And she had told me that even in the lead up to the day that she was fired, she had talked with a more senior judge at her court to ask about, like, if she was fired, like if this were to happen, like, how should I navigate these things? And later that day, that senior judge ended up getting the email himself.
Wow.
And so once that happened, she says that once that senior judge got the email, she was like, I'm done.
So she was just waiting for the guillotine to drop.
Yes, yeah. And I've talked to judges who preemptively quit. I've talked to judges that preemptively packed up their offices. I've talked to judges that just kept on doing their jobs, even though they knew that it would probably come to an end. And so I think a lot of these judges in the lead up to their terminations, they just wanted to keep doing the work. They just wanted to keep doing it as long as possible. Mm-hmm. And some definitely resigned, retired, quit because they couldn't or they didn't want to or they felt pressure. But I think a lot really also felt like if they can see it through, they can hang on as long as possible.
Huh.
She and at least 80 immigration judges have been fired by the administration. Wow. A lot of them, including Petit, were let go as a part of the administration's purge of federal employees as their 2-year probationary period came to an end.
Oh, yeah. We saw a lot of that for other federal employees early in this year.
Right. And not all immigration judges were fired just because their 2 years were up. Some judges, like Petit, said they also thought their personal backgrounds might be a factor.
Wait, what do you mean by their personal backgrounds being a factor?
So a lot of other judges who were fired, like Petit, had been lawyers who defended people seeking legal status before they became immigration judges on a bench.
I was an immigrant myself. I am an immigrant myself. I naturalized while I was in law school. And so to really be able to be a part of the system and to be a fair, empathetic, knowledgeable immigration judge, the type of judge I wanted to appear in front of and wanted my clients to be in front of, was something that I was very excited about doing.
And y'all, that's what we are getting into today. How the Trump White House is reshaping the way immigration courts work in this country. From firing judges to hiring enforcement agents, these moves have been pushing people with immigration cases pending before the courts into some really precarious corners. And this is all another prong in the White House's project to fundamentally change who can come to America and who can become American.
This message comes from Schwab. Everyone has moments when they could have done better. Same goes for where you invest. Level up and invest smarter with Schwab. Get market insights, education, and human help when you need it.
This message comes from Vital Farms, who works with small American farms to bring you pasture-raised eggs. Farmer Tanner Pace shares why he chose to collaborate with Vital Farms when he brought pasture-raised hens to his small Missouri farm.
Probably the best thing about being a Vital Farms farmer is working with a group that is not just motivated for one thing. They're motivated for the well-being of the animals, for the well-being of the earth. They care about it all, and that means a lot to me.
To learn more about how Vital Farms farmers care for their hens, visit vitalfarms.com.
This message comes from Babbel. Babbel's conversation-based language technique teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world. With lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/NPR. Spelled BABBEL.com/NPR. Rules and restrictions may apply. This message is sponsored by DSW, the birthplace of the humble brag. Full of all kinds of shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. And when there are never-ending options for every style, mood, occasion, and budget, there is unlimited freedom to play. And that's something to brag about. So go ahead, stock up on fresh sneakers from your favorite brands. Or try those boots you always secretly knew you could pull off. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW, let them surprise you.
Covering immigration policy this year means that you're covering a lot of complicated, legal, wonky topics that impact the daily lives of real people, and it's constantly changing. And we are seeing the way that this administration is carrying out its immigration agenda is true to its word of the campaign trail. President Trump wants to do a mass deportation policy, and it is doing the most to see that through and message that it is doing that.
Wow.
Some immigration judges say that immigration court is death penalty cases in a traffic court setting.
Oh, my God.
It is so administrative. It is civil procedure. It is not a criminal matter, but could have life or death consequences.
Wow. How did you find out that the Trump administration was firing immigration judges?
So this came to light in February at around the time that there were a lot of other cuts to different corners of the federal workforce. And there was a group of about a dozen that had been hired towards the end of 2024. So it's still during the Biden administration. They'd gone through their training. They'd been sworn in by former Attorney General Merrick Garland. And on the day that they were supposed to start, they got an email saying that they were actually fired.
Wow.
Like, very sudden. 3 or 4 sentences saying that per Article 2 of the Constitution, the Attorney General has the right to terminate your employment. Therefore, you're done.
Wow.
And supervisors didn't know. Court leadership didn't know. I mean, really figuring out who made the decision is still something that is still kind of trying to be sussed out.
Right.
And then we started seeing across federal government, right, the acts of workers as they continue to reach those 2-year probationary periods. Broadly, this was an effort from the Trump administration to reduce the size of the federal workforce, and they said it would increase efficiency. Remember, like, immigration courts are under the federal government. They're under the executive branch. So these judges are more like civil servants than anything else. And that's when people really started to worry, what if immigration judges are subject to this same kind of policy? They were encouraged to voluntarily resign, and many did that. But I have independently tracked 70 judges specifically that were terminated between February and October. So they got an email from the Justice Department telling them that their time with the agency was over. And a lot of them was as they were reaching their 2-year mark. Not all. There's about a dozen that had been career officials with the Justice Department or had even worked for other agencies, including ICE, including other parts of the federal government, had been military, and they were fired as well. So once I compiled the list of judges that I knew were terminated, as in, like, they got a letter from the Justice Department saying that their tenure was over. I began working with my colleague, Anusha Mather, and we tracked their backgrounds. The backgrounds show that the largest share of the judges who were fired came from some sort of immigrant defense background experience, primarily private practice. Some had even DHS experience as well. And that was a hypothesis that had been voiced to me by some of the fired judges who were really looking for some sort of pattern in why them. Because clearly, there's a need, right? There's millions of people waiting for their cases to be heard. There's a 4 million case backlog in immigration courts. And there were job postings in a lot of these courts where people were being fired. So a lot of the judges left really thinking, like, what did I do? What was it about me that resulted in this?
So just to be clear, there's 3 branches of government, and we know that the judicial branch is the branch under which all of our courts operate, right? Whether that's, civil cases like divorces or whatever, or criminal cases or tax cases or whatever. But when it comes to immigration, that court happens under the executive branch, which is the branch controlled by the president.
Yes.
Why? Why?
Oh, Lord. Okay. Immigration law is federal. It generally is controlled by the federal government. Before DHS was created, it was all kind of managed under this agency called the Immigration and Naturalization Service.
INS.
And then after the attacks on 9/11, DHS was created. So a lot of people don't know that DHS is a baby agency. I mean, it is younger than me, which is shocking.
Did you just baby girl DHS?
I did. It is a hodgepodge of agencies. And so what they did is they pulled out the enforcement side. ICE, Customs and Border Protection, and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, which is how people apply for green cards, work permits, things like that. But they kept immigration courts under DOJ. And the reason they did that was to try and have a separation between ICE and the judges. You're looking at me. You're right. They're all still under the same boss. But they wanted to try and make sure that the Attorney General, for example, or the Secretary of Homeland Security is not the immediate boss of both the judge and the person who's prosecuting the cases. I mean, listen, every immigration attorney and even former judges on both sides of the aisle tell me that is a perceived separation. And, you know, each administration has used immigration courts politically in one way or another. And we are really seeing this administration test those bounds. A lot of former immigration judges are huge advocates of pulling immigration courts out of the DOJ because there just is simply not that complete independence that we think.
Okay. How many judges are there? How many courts are there? And what are they doing every day?
There are about 70 immigration courts or what they call adjudication centers throughout the country. And we started the year with about 700 immigration judges, about 100, at least 125. Some people are tracking closer to 140 have either resigned, quit, or been fired by this administration.
Right, okay.
I have previously asked DOJ about these numbers, and they typically say they don't comment on personnel matters.
Okay. So the country's immigration courts are usually not the sexiest or most high profile. No shade,
No.
but obviously have been getting a lot of attention of late, especially since the Trump administration has made this aggressive posture towards deporting people a big tentpole of this administration. And it feels like a lot of due process isn't happening just as an outsider looking in. Is that right? Like, what have you been seeing in the courts?
You know, it's really complicated because due process exists in this country. But for immigrants, it really is on more of a sliding scale. I mean, there are millions of individual people and their families whose cases are currently sitting in immigration court. And that's not even counting other ways of seeking legal status through the Department of Homeland Security. So this is just talking about courts. I have been to about half dozen immigration courts in Virginia, in Maryland, New York, Massachusetts, and every day you see dozens of people come through for their initial court hearings, which are mandatory, and then they get a new hearing, usually scheduled, honestly, a year out. And then you can see people coming in for their individual hearings, which is so unique and intense because it's this few hours where immigration judges question their clients about why they should stay in the country, what kind of violence they felt or they had in their home countries on their journeys to the United States. And the Department of Homeland Security, through the agency also known as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, gets the chance to argue why that person doesn't have a right to stay in the United States or shouldn't get to stay in the United States. And within a few hours, the judge makes a decision, like on site. Sometimes they can say they'll issue a written one later, but every day people are granted asylum, denied asylum, granted additional protections from being deported, or given that final rubber stamp deportation order to leave the country.
So what kind of stuff in their backgrounds as lawyers did they think might have been flagged?
If they had a history of defending immigrants, working for immigrant defense nonprofits, legal aids, did your prior private practice defend immigrants in immigration court, help with asylum hearings, help with visa applications. I think people were worried that if they had any of that experience, that the administration would perceive them as being lenient when it came to enforcing immigration law and would be less likely to give that rubber stamp on a final deportation order, even though every judge that was fired has definitely denied asylum and has definitely denied protections. Some had higher asylum grant rates than others, but it really was kind of across the spectrum.
But their backgrounds in immigrant defense was seen as a shorthand for a certain set of political priorities.
Yeah. And again, that perception of like how willing would they be to back up what the Trump administration was doing? You know, we see immigration judges kind of come to their careers in two main ways.
Okay.
You know, one is that background experience in immigrant defense. You know, you defend immigrants most of your career, then you become an immigration judge. The second is working for the Department of Homeland Security. You are probably working for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. ICE has an entire branch of its department that is lawyers. All they do is go into immigration court and essentially prosecute these cases. So a lot of people go that legal route and then go and be an immigration judge after that. And so there's so many varying statistics on kind of like how people's backgrounds result in their ultimate grant records, asylum grant records. But also there are so many other factors that can go into that, including where do they live? What is the immigrant population of where that court is? And things like that.
So you're saying it's not just as simple as saying this person has a background in ICE, they're going to say that everyone should be deported and they shouldn't get asylum. This person has a background in immigration defense. They should be allowed to stay here. They should get a visa.
Yeah, it's totally not that simple. But it's, again, that perception of like, what does the administration want to signal about who they think makes a good judge? This administration is all about signaling and messaging. Like, we have talked so much about how perceived fear is the message, right? Like the call to self-deport, right? Or we will come and arrest you very violently in your house. And so whether or not that message matches up with reality is a whole separate question. Same thing applies here to these judges in these courts.
We've been seeing all these videos of people showing up to their immigration hearings and then getting yoked up by ICE agents who have masks on and being taken away and detained. And you're saying due process is still happening. How do the people in the courts, whether they're judges, whether they're the lawyers for the people who are the respondents in the courts, to say nothing of the people who are actually being detained themselves and their families, like how are they thinking about and metabolizing this like current posture towards the immigration system?
You know, the less documentation that you have, the less permission you have to be in the United States, and the more recent you are in the country, the less rights you have. So what we're seeing when you see a lot of those videos, a lot of them are out of two courts in New York, 26 Federal Plaza and 290 Broadway, where a lot of these videos are going viral of masked agents in these otherwise very boring and bland hallways with fluorescent lights, just grabbing people in very, very violent scenes, a lot of scuffles, a lot of injuries, a lot of press is also there, which kind of adds to the chaos sometimes as well. That is mostly catching some of those folks who are in the country less than 2 years, who are at that very, very bottom of the due process rights scale. We've also seen this administration implement policies to make it easier to do that for people who are beyond that scope. So really stretching the limits of who is easier to deport, which limits due process access.
So the immigration courts have this giant backlog of cases. You spoke to some of the fire judges who were hired to help specifically with the backlog of cases in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. Why was Chelmsford such a hotspot for immigration judges?
Yeah, so 2 is like the magic number here, right? So Chelmsford opened 2 years ago. And the reason it opened was because the Boston court was way too overloaded. It had an insane backlog, like tens of thousands of cases worth of backlog.
What's happened in Boston that made it such a logjam?
It is one of the few immigration courts in the Northeast region. You have the ones in New York, you have one in Hartford, Connecticut, but other than that, I think further up north, it's just Boston.
So people are just getting routed
into Boston.
Gotcha.
And the Biden administration opened up this second court in Chelmsford and saw that as a way to redirect some of the backlog. So they hired judges for that court, and they were supposed to have 21 or 22 judges in that court, like at max capacity.
I relocated from North Carolina to take this job. I closed a 20-year practice to become a judge. I was given 8 days to close my practice.
This is Judge George Pappas, who was hired in 2023 and then fired earlier this year. He was hired in Chelmsford to help fill the need for judges.
Most of us were not local. In Chelmsford, we've had judges come in from Italy, from Arizona, from Texas, from Colorado, from Hawaii. Many of those judges are gone.
They never made it.
Wow.
They never made it to fill all those roles. By the start of the year, they got close. I think they got to like 18, 19. They currently, I'm looking at their roster right now, have 5 judges.
Wow.
And that 5 has like ebbed and flowed a little bit in the last few months. So a ton of their judges were terminated because they got laid off at their 2-year probationary period, and then others resigned or quit.
What happened to the backlogs?
It just gets worse. So every single judge I talked to that worked at that court told me that they handled thousands of cases, like had 7,000 cases, and they can only finish several hundred a year.
I was expected to close 700 cases. My fiscal year was October to October.
And you get rid of that judge.
Oh, my God.
And those 700 cases, not to mention the thousands more that he did not get to, now go on the end of someone else's docket.
Wow.
And then I talked with judges who were like, yeah, I got thousands of cases from so-and-so that was terminated in July, and then I got terminated in September.
Oh, my God. So it's this compounding.
It's compounding.
Like the snowball.
Yes. Yeah.
And these are real people's lives, right? It's like if you're the person who is like waiting for some kind of resolution in your immigration status and is getting kicked around from
2030.
Judge. Oh, my God. Have you spoken to anyone whose case has been delayed indefinitely by these firings?
I've been in touch with a lot of lawyers, particularly in the Boston area, who were directly impacted by this reshuffling. And, you know, the big concern right now is in prior administrations, if you had a case pending in immigration court, you were decently left alone by immigration enforcement. Now, the Trump administration has a mandatory detention policy for people who entered the country illegally. So even if you have a pending case in court, you can be detained. While reporting this out in Chelmsford, Catherine Mattingly, a spokesperson for the immigration courts, said reducing the immigration court backlog was one of her agency's highest priorities.
Coming up, from immigration judges being fired to immigration agents being hired, we are heading to a job fair.
I've talked to some people who've come from Georgia, California, Texas.
Seriously? Just to come up to this event?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Unfortunately, I live 15 minutes up the road, so.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
How Trump's big, beautiful bill is ramping up hiring for ICE and other agencies to fundamentally reshape immigration for the foreseeable future.
Stay with us.
Support for NPR and the following message come from 20th Century Studios with Ella McKay, a new comedy from Academy Award-winning writer-director James L. Brooks. An idealistic young woman juggles her family and work life in a story about the people you love and how to survive them. Featuring an all-star cast, including Emma Mackey, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jack Lowden, Kumail Nanjiani, Ayo Edebiri, Spike Fern, Julie Kavner, with Albert Brooks and Woody Harrelson. See Ella McKay only in theaters December 12th. Get tickets now.
This message comes from ADP. ADP knows any new technology, any old competitor, any trendy thing, even a trendy thing that everyone knows isn't a great idea, but management just wants to give it a try for a bit, can change the world of work. So, whether it's a last-minute policy change or adding a new company holiday, ADP designs forward-thinking solutions to help businesses take on the next anything. ADP, always designing for people.
This message comes from Doctors Without Borders. Around the world, the need for humanitarian aid is rising. Doctors Without Borders is working around the clock to meet this moment, but they can't do it without your support. In over 75 countries, medical teams are responding to natural disasters, caring for patients in war zones, helping stop disease outbreaks, and more. This Giving Tuesday, you can make a life-saving impact. Learn how to donate at doctorswithoutborders.org/NPR.
Gene.
Ximena.
Code switch. Okay, so when Trump's big, beautiful bill passed this summer, it gave the Department of Justice $3 billion to hire new judges. And these judges were being hired while the other judges that you talked to were being fired. Can you talk to us about the onboarding of this new cohort of judges that is more to the Trump administration's liking?
Mm-hmm. So they, being the Justice Department, recently announced a class of 36 immigration judges.
Okay.
Only 11 permanent, as in they're not temporary. And I'll explain that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Of those 11, every single one of them has a background primarily in federal immigration law enforcement. Not all, but most are former ICE attorneys, even trainers within border protection and ICE, have more of that enforcement background. That is one of the ways people go into being ICE. The other 2/3 are JAGs. They're military lawyers. And that is because the Pentagon authorized hundreds of military lawyers to be temporary immigration judges on 6-month stints.
So Trump got $3 billion to hire new judges for the federal immigration courts, right? And as you said, these courts are wildly understaffed. They need more bodies to deal with all these cases. So, what is their plan?
So in November, the Justice Department announced a campaign to hire what they're calling deportation judges.
So not immigration judges, deportation judges.
They launched this promotional page telling people that they can, quote, define America for generations, and boasting a top salary of over $200,000. And the cities for these roles are Boston, San Francisco, New York, and Chicago. And these are the cities where many judges have been terminated.
Okay, so the Trump administration has also allocated $30 billion to ICE. And you told me before that ICE is actually not really all that big, like contrary to what people think, contrary to their profile in the discourse. How big is ICE?
Yeah. So at the start of the year, ICE, I'm like making my hands real big, ICE rainbow hands was 20,000 people.
Okay.
ICE has three components. The part of ICE that does what the public thinks ICE does.
Pulling people over in cars and detaining them, patrolling neighborhoods in unmarked vehicles, that kind of thing.
Is 6,000 people.
That's really small.
Tiny.
Yeah.
Tiny. And so that's why we saw this rapid push to get other federal agencies involved. So parts of ICE that, quite frankly, don't do immigration enforcement. They do money laundering, human trafficking, drug investigations. A lot of them are now doing immigration-related work, which they originally will tell you they did not sign up for. You have FBI, you have DEA, you have ATF, you have alphabet letter. Name your letter combination, and they've been tapped in to do ICE work. Yeah. And so that's why that happened, because ICE doesn't have enough people. And now, we're seeing Border Patrol, a whole separate part of DHS, be very violent on the streets, be the foremost agency on these immigration arrests. Again, that's not ICE. I think to the average person and to the public, maybe it's distinction without difference, right? It's still the federal government. There are still federal law enforcement agents tasked by the Trump administration. But when it comes to specifically calling out what agency is doing what can one agency do versus another, and kind of those individual distinctions that might make a difference in court, if you're trying to sue someone or if you're trying to figure out who someone is, that distinction is super important.
So you said that they've been trying to staff up.
Yes, they want to hire 10,000 more agents by the end of the year.
Wow. And you went to a job fair.
So the one that I went to was DHS broadly.
Okay.
This career fair was in Provo in Utah.
Where did you come from today?
From Arizona.
Layton, Utah.
El Paso, Texas.
Boise, Idaho. Oregon. California.
Well, I'm stationed in Georgia right now, Fort Benning.
I talked to people who came from all over looking for jobs at DHS.
Came from my house.
From your house is where?
Oh, Saratoga.
Saratoga
Springs, sorry.
Okay, well, I've talked to some people who've come from Georgia, California, Texas.
Seriously? Just to come up to this event?
Yes.
Holy
It's actually been mostly people flying in. Yesterday was really busy, a lot of people from all over.
I didn't know that. Unfortunately, I live 15 minutes up the road, so.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So, I spoke with a man named Alan Richardson.
Originally, I'm from East Texas.
He sees this as one way to benefit his retirement, working for the federal government.
I'm a prior veteran, and I want to go back into federal service so I can buy back my military time and retire earlier than have to start a whole other career with a state or county agency.
He really wants to do something in the space of public safety and law enforcement.
What kind of roles are you hoping to inquire about?
I'm still trying to figure that out. So either Border Patrol or Secret Service or ICE. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out which part. When it comes to enforcement, when it comes to enforcing the laws that are on the books, it shouldn't be a political issue. There is no politics behind it. I don't know when public safety ever became a political issue, but it's just, as a law enforcement officer, you don't get to pick and choose which laws to enforce. You enforce them as they are on the books.
When you cast a wide net for applicants, you're going to get a wide net of applicants. And so you had the group of people who wanted to do it because they believe in the mission of this administration. And I did talk to those people. Those people were there. But, I think that a lot of people just really saw this as yet another job. They knew that there were these bonuses and incentives.
I mean, if you watch like any sporting event right now, right, you see the ads on during the game. It's like, join ICE. You get a $50,000 bonus when you join ICE.
Which that $50K is also spread out over the course of 5 years. So I think a lot of people didn't realize that when I was talking
they
to
don't
them.
say it in the ads. That's a very different proposition, actually, right?
Says it in the bill, though. You got to read the bill.
Oh, man.
I want to make sure that what I read online correlates to what they're saying before I just start applying.
So many people were like, this is not end game for me. This is a stepping stone to working at the State Department or doing something else. Maybe they'd been laid off by their tech jobs and were looking to maybe do IT work for the department. You had people who were preparing to retire from the military and were looking for a nice way to ease into civilian work. You saw then the next range of people, which was probably like law enforcement minded folks, like military as well, that were looking for that next career step.
Like our boy Alan?
Yeah, like Alan.
Once you do your time there, usually you can laterally move somewhere else if you get tired of it. So they have endless opportunities.
So there were so many people there that wanted to go Secret Service. The Coast Guard is actually within Homeland Security, so they were interested in joining the Coast Guard, Air Marshals, Federal Protective Service, so many other jobs like canine handlers, like a wide variety of things. And then you had the people who were actively looking to join Border Patrol or ICE on the enforcement removal operations, which is what you think ICE does. And a lot of people, when you ask them about there's this mass deportation policy or, have you seen these videos? Are you really concerned about some of the work you might have to do? And, a lot of them were like, yeah, but, it's part of the job. We all have to do things we don't like to do.
My understanding is that they're going after criminals, people who have violated the law. They're not going after every single person that's undocumented, not just someone who is working as a janitor somewhere, so to speak. I can have my own personal opinions and beliefs, but if your employer says you got to do something, you got to go do it. That's any business in the country or in the world. Everyone can have an opinion. I think having an opinion is okay, but I think going after the criminals is what's the goal here. There's no way you're going to deport however many millions of people that are here illegally. You're never going to deport them all.
That perception of the immigration enforcement people only going after criminals, that's not quite right. I mean, our colleague Sergio Martinez-Beltran reported on federal records that found that of the more than 600 immigrants arrested in Chicago during this past fall's massive sweeps in that city, which, we reported out on Code Switch, 97% of those people who were swept up in that had no criminal record.
Right. This has never been a hot job. DHS and ICE and Border Patrol consistently rank really low on employee satisfaction ratings for the federal government.
Interesting.
They are very hard jobs. They are often in very remote locations. You're exposed to the elements. If you're in Border Patrol, you're out in the desert, you're in the mountains, you encounter a lot of things. And then on the ICE side as well is you are public enemy number one for people who don't like this administration. And that naturally exposes law enforcement officers to doxing, to danger, to targeting, to kind of what have you. But by and large, like if you were going to apply for a job with ICE or Border Patrol, essentially you don't care. And I don't mean you don't care in like a callous way, but it is just not a thing that is phasing you at the moment.
Okay.
And I happened to bump into this guy named Terry Rhodes.
I am 48. I just honestly came in just to kind of get a little bit more information and stuff.
Terry is a chef in Utah, and that particular career fair took place not far and shortly after
the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Like, I don't even know the guy, but I cried. I cried. Like, this is not the country that I grew up in. All he was just expressing a different opinion than somebody else. I don't know what's wrong with that.
And Terry told me that after that happened, he essentially felt the need to just try and do something.
Just whatever I can do. Just want to serve my country. Want my kids to grow up in the country that I grew up in.
And so he had a buddy that was coming to this career fair to look for jobs. And he decided, he might as well too.
I applied for an ICE officer, deportation officer.
It's interesting that he said, I need to do something because Charlie Kirk's killing had nothing to do with immigration.
It didn't.
Customs.
But it's, this administration has a really strong argument that joining this kind of workforce is defending the homeland and is a way to serve your country, very alike the military. And so I think he just wanted to see what options were out there for that kind of work. And so I had a conversation with him about what change he wanted to see in the world and why he thought that this would bring about that change.
Honestly, we need to focus on our families and God and loving other people.
Mm-hmm. And what about the ERO role of deportation officer, you think helps you do that?
Probably doesn't. I don't know. I don't know if it really helps us get back to family, helps us get back to God and all that stuff, but...
So why do it?
I don't know. I don't know what to do now.
Oh, no. Sorry.
Right? I'm just, yeah.
Do you think you'll continue with the process?
Probably not.
Wow, so that man was asking some big-ass life questions in real time with you. Like, wow.
Right. He was kind of going through it.
We talked about the clearing out of the immigration judges and sort of the theoretical rebuilding of this immigration judge ecosystem. ICE getting all this money pumped into it and becoming this much larger agency. Is there a world in the future in which ICE and all of this large immigration enforcement apparatus gets shrunk under a different administration?
I think two things. One, sure. We are seeing this current administration take many efforts to reduce the size of the federal government. And federal workers generally have a lot of protections once they're past their 2-year probationary period we've been talking about. But there are a lot of concerns amongst those who are interested in joining ICE about that, about if there is to be a Democratic president particularly, is there going to be a giant slashing, cutting, or changing of the ICE workforce? That's a very real concern for people who are leaving their current, maybe stable jobs, uprooting their own families, moving to remote locations, going through intense training, and a very intense job. On the other hand, we see administrations over the course of history build things up, and then the next administration doesn't really change it. And the way that ICE is building up is not just in terms of personnel, but a wide variety of data gathering, a wide variety of contracts, a wide variety of interagency work that is probably a lot harder to undo. And so, it really is up to the next administration. And even if they don't reduce the workforce, kind of seeing what they do with the workforce, or honestly, what they keep on doing.
Ximena Bustillo covers immigration and the Department of Homeland Security for NPR.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, y'all. That is our show. You can follow us on Instagram at NPR Code Switch, all one word. If email's more your bag, ours is codeswitch@npr.org. And subscribe to our podcast on the NPR app or, wherever it is you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to the Code Switch newsletter by going to npr.org/Code Switch newsletter. And just a reminder that signing up for Code Switch Plus is a great way to support our show and support public media. You might have heard we need it right now. And you get to listen to every episode of our show and others sponsor-free. So please go find out more at plus.npr.org/codeswitch.
This episode was produced by Christina Kala with field production by Sage Miller. It was edited by Jess Kung and Dalia Mortada with help from Anna Yakananov. Our engineer was Robert Rodriguez.
And we'd be remiss if we did not shout out the rest of the Code Switch Massive. That's Xavier Lopez, Leah Danella, Verilyn Williams, and B.A. Parker. As for me, I'm Gene Demby.
And I'm Ximena Bustillo.
Be easy, y'all.
Bye. No, okay.
Now you're locked in forever. When they come on the show, you gotta say bye. You gotta say bye.
Support for NPR and the following message come from HomeServe. It never happens at a good time. The pipe bursts at midnight. The heater quits on the coldest night. Good thing HomeServe's hotline is available 24/7. Call to schedule a repair and a local pro will be on their way. Trusted by millions. For plans starting at $4.99 a month, go to homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs. Support for NPR and the following message come from HomeServe. Owning a home is full of surprises, and when something breaks, it can feel like the whole day unravels. HomeServe is ready to help, bringing peace of mind to 4.5 million homeowners nationwide. Plans start at just $4.99 a month. Sign up today at homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.